welcome back to my channel, Planty Princess 92. My name is Ashley, and today I'm going to be propagating two of my Monstera Albo Borsigiana plants. So both of these had come from propagations originally, and now they are getting big enough to the point that I can propagate them again to make two other plants. So one of them is going to have 3 leaves, and then the main plant will have 1 leaf left over, and then the other one is going to have 2 leaves with the main plant also having 1 leaf left over. So we'll just go ahead, get right into it, get started. I'm just going to briefly tell you the care of this plant. This plant is really an easy care plant, at least for me. I have it in my Vivo Sun grow tent. It gets a lot of bright. It is more direct because it's in an enclosed grow tent, but I do have a shear hanging in front of that grow light just because the grow light was so strong. Some of my other plants couldn't handle that. So it gets semi-direct, semi-diffused light, but it's very bright. I have all my Monstera Albo Borsigianas growing in leca, so I really don't have soil watering needs. But I do have to make sure that they get the right nutrients that they need, and I do have to make sure that I am constantly making sure their reservoir is filled and that I am filtering out and exchanging the water that sits in the reservoir. They do like a higher humidity. The more humidity they get, I have my humidifier set between 70–75% in the grow tent. This does help with the growth. And the more bright light they get, the more variegation they should be getting on their leaves. So pretty easy care plant. I'll just show you each of these plants. Because they were cuttings, they are pretty much baby leaves. This one has some nice variegation. It's more sectoral because it's really confined to this one spot right here. And then the other two are kind of just speckly as they go through. But I do believe as they grow, the variegation, as you see here, because this was one of the newer leaves, it will get more defined. And then on my other one, the leaves are a little bit bigger, and again, not too much variegation, but I do believe once again that they will get more as they start to mature, as they start to get bigger. The variegation will get a little bit more spread out throughout the leaves and a little more distinct. So I'm going to start with this plant actually because I am so curious. I have this one. Now, aerial roots on Monsteras are like serious, okay? They are huge, they are thick, and I can't believe for such a little plant that I even have an aerial root this big, and I've been really interested to take this out and see how big it is, like see how long it goes down and see how firm it is the whole way down. But right here, this is an aerial root right here. And it is just crazy. It's like a tree trunk. So I'm really excited to see what's kind of going on for the rest of that aerial root. So I'm going to propagate this one first, just because I can't wait any longer to check that aerial root out. Now you do want to make sure that you remove, especially if you're growing in leca or even if you're growing in soil, you want to make sure you remove the plant easily. Now because I'm using mesh pots, and this can happen even in soil because they can grow out through the bottom holes, you want to make sure you don't damage or rip any of these roots that are hanging out the side here. So I'm just going to make sure when I pull it out, I am doing so carefully. Leca is a lot easier to contain than soil, that's for sure. It's like stuck in here, like it's like stuck. There we go. So now, as I mentioned, I did start both of these plants as cuttings themselves, and they've only been growing for a few months actually. Maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months, but not much longer than that. So for the amount of time that they've grown, they actually have developed, at least what I'm seeing here. And the other one is bulging out of the pot as well. So I believe it's going to be the same situation. But the root systems they've developed actually are very intense for the short time that they've been growing, and for them starting with 0 roots, not even aerial roots when I first started these as cuttings. So I'm very proud of how far these come, and I can't wait to see what they bring in the future with the new cuttings I am about to propagate today. All right, so now that I got all my leca carefully off of the roots, you can kind of see we do have a nice root system in here. Most of it's nice and white. That aerial root is, oh my goodness, it's just crazy. The roots are like attached and winding around each other. So this is that aerial root, and it's coming all the way down here. It does turn white as a water root at the tip here, but then it has another really hard root right here kind of twining up. There's lots of feeder roots, lots of healthy roots. Now these here that look brown, they're not mushy at all. This actually was another one that just started as an aerial root, so there is no root rot here. They're just that color because of being aerial roots or starting as aerial roots. So I have no trimming to do on the roots because everything, oh, I have a tiny bit of mush right here actually. Just this little tip right at the point of my finger. You could probably barely even see it right here. So I am just gonna snip that off. Otherwise it will spread, and you definitely don't want that. Root rot does definitely spread. It can spread through other roots in a plant, and it can also spread to another plant, especially if you have them in the same water. So, and at least I did. I don't know if I will after I propagate, depending on what size pots I'm able to use, but I did have them in the same pots, so it could have spread to the other plant. So we are going to make the cut below this aerial root, this one right here. They will both actually have a really nice starter root system because that aerial root did turn into water roots or semi-hydroponic roots. It does have feeder roots on it, which is a plus because there is a new leaf starting to bulge out there, and you can see how it gets like thicker where the new leaf is going to come. When you propagate a plant like that, even if the leaf is already pushing out, it does slow down that process because it has to focus more on the roots than growing the leaves. But I won't have that problem for the most part because it will have a really nice root system. So anyways, let's just get this girl cut and see what we end up with. So I'm going to make sure I cut below this node where the aerial root is, but I want to get as close to the other node as I can without disturbing the leaf or that top root. Or if there wasn't an aerial root or any roots coming out of that node, you would want to make sure that you don't cut that node off, especially because that's where the last leaf is. And if I cut that node off, that plant will most likely not survive. So I'm going to kind of cut at an angle here, just like that. And like I said, the roots are kind of tangled into each other, so I may have to, nope, they came right apart. So, okay, so this actually doesn't have any feeder roots like I thought. The other roots that looked like feeder roots were kind of just twirled around it, but that's okay because that is a pretty hefty root actually. And that will definitely hold these leaves over until it gets more roots. So this is my first propagation cutting. It's a really cute one. The leaves are decent size. 2 leaves to start. You also you want to make sure on really any plant that you don't have too many leaves for a propagation because a lot of the times it will die. And this is what I have left over from the main plant to begin with. Now, right from this node, a lot of times it happens within where the leaf is, but it could really happen from the side, from the front. It could really pop out anywhere along the node. That's where the new growth will then shoot up from. So I'm going to leave these here. We'll get the other one propagated, and then I'll decide what pots I'm going to re-put them up in. Now the second one, as I said, is the same with the roots kind of coming out through the bottom, a little bit out through the sides. So I was real careful to make sure I didn't rip any of those off. And again, we have another pretty extensive root system. I'm super excited because I haven't taken these plants out or really checked on the roots or got to see the roots since I potted these up originally as propagations. I propagate normally right in leca. So I don't propagate in water, see the roots, and then pot them up. So I haven't seen these roots except for what was growing out of the bottom since I've turned the propagations into plants. Now there is a little bit more raw on this one than there was on that one, but it's nothing too dramatic, nothing that's going to be detrimental to the plant's well-being. But again, we definitely just want to make sure, and I want to think that because the other one had less, it actually did spread from this plant, since this one does have a little bit more. Now that could not be the case at all, but because I had these both in the same container, and you can see how I really didn't change the water too much. It's dark like that because that's what color the fertilizer is, but there definitely is some yuckies floating around in there as well. But a lot of these bacteria are waterborne, so it probably most likely did spread. So I'm just going to carefully feel around. I'm going to cut off all that yucky, mushy stuff. And you do want to make sure that when you're cutting the mushy stuff off, you get like right at the tip where the healthy root starts. That way you remove all the dead and decayingness, so it doesn't just continue to spread up the root. Have a couple feeders that are rotted. And really, it's really just tips of stuff. It's nothing too major, so that's definitely a good sign. All right, so that looks like that's everything. So that wasn't too bad. There wasn't really much there. But if I didn't do this now, like propagate these today or repot them anytime soon, it definitely would have spread and gotten a lot worse, which is why you want to make sure you keep up with your plant's care needs. So again, we have a lot of feeder roots, a lot of healthy roots. Where I'm going to make the cut on this one is right here below this node right here. So we'll have these 3 leaves, and then this one will be the last leaf left over. It does have, again, a little root right here with 2 feeder roots coming off of it. So this one will be just as well off as the other one was. So let's just go ahead and make that cut, again, close to the base, but without damaging the leaf or the node. I'm just going to make my cut. And that's what we're left with. Now, because the main plants have such a nice root system, obviously the growth should push out, the new growth should push out pretty quickly, pretty efficiently, especially because I'm keeping them in a little higher humidity and that really, really bright lighting. That definitely helps speed up the process really of any plant propagation, of any plant growing. So that definitely is a bonus, especially when propagating, because it really does speed up the process. So this is the root system I have here on this plant, and this is the newest leaf. It actually just did come out and unfurl. It's not even hardened off yet. So it will really give this plant time to push out some more roots before it starts popping out another leaf, which is a good thing. So I am going to actually put these in little 3-inch mesh pots, because this and this is too big to go in there. This one I really shouldn't, because the roots. So we're going to use 1 3-inch for this, and that's only momentarily while this really gets some more roots. I don't have any 4-inch pots. I only have 5-inch pots, other than these 2 4-inch pots, which I am going to use for this and this. So that's why I'm just going to use a 3-inch pot for now. But once it does get more roots, we'll definitely have to repot this, because you don't want to let it be too root bound. That will kind of stunt the growth a little bit. They don't mind it much, but when growing semi-hydroponically, root bound means it's coming out of all these little holes and it's going to be into the water, and that's not good. So now with nodes, you want to make sure the node's inserted into the leca or the soil or the water. With this case, I already have roots, so I don't really have to worry about that as much, as well as semi-hydroponic and leca or like pond or something like that. It uses capillary action to wick up the water. So as long as the node and the roots are in the leca, You really don't want them to be submerged in the water unless you're water propagating. You'll be fine. Right, so our first plant is all potted up. She looks so cute. She's so petite. And this is just my favorite leaf. I love it. I cannot wait to see what this one brings when she starts to grow. So now the next two, I really think this one could use a 5-inch pot, honestly, because the roots are really just so big. Like, they really fill up the whole 4-inch pot, and that's just not going to work for me. So we shall use the 5-inch pot. And I have leca. I rinsed through these with the plants still in them before I started this video, that they were pretty much, so the leca was pretty much washed out as best as possible. And then I have some already pre-cleaned leca to the side here. You definitely want to make sure you rinse your leca off, because when it first comes right out of the bag, it's really dusty, and that's not good for your plant. So again, we'll just make sure the roots are going to be submerged in the water. We want to make sure this top node is above. That way the plant will find its way either way, but it just makes it easier for the plant. And I like to see the growth as soon as it pops. Alright, so second plant done. This little one leafer. She's adorable as well. So we got 2 down, 2 to go. And then that brings me to having 6 Monstera Borsigianas total, because I do have 2 more in 1 6-inch pot growing that I took these cuts off originally. So next we will use the clear pot. Just kind of clean it up a bit. All right. Roots is like huge. I want some of the stem to be in the leca. So there we go. That's perfect. All right, so we got number 3 going on here. There are just those 2 little roots poking out right here at the top. I'm not real worried about it. 1, they'll either dry up, or 2, they will find their way back into the pot, into the leca. Either way, the plant will be fine because it has so many roots already. And last but not least, we're going to put this one probably, yeah, in the 5-inch pot as well, because the 4-inch pot, this is just too long. I'd have to like crunch it up, and I really don't want to do that. So this little lady's gonna go in a 5-inch pot as well, and they're not real deep, which is nice. So it's not like it's overgrown, like it's not like the pot is too big for the plant. This is also a really pretty leaf. It's got the light variegation up here. This is also the newest leaf, so it's so subtle because it's not real white yet, because it's a new leaf and it's not fully hardened off, but it will really start to stand out once it hardens off a little bit better. So I'm excited for that. right, so here is the last plant all potted up. Sometimes I think it's so funny because, I mean, it's not like this is one huge plant and I'm like taking propagations and leaving one leaf and having 2 leaves or 3 leaves. I don't know, I'm sure everybody else does that too because I'm not the only crazy plant person, but I do have one plant, my Pink Princess. It's just getting so tall with so many leaves. It's getting hard to like cut. I think in spring I'm going to propagate that, but it just looks so beautiful growing up its little moss pole trellis thing. But anyways, back to the Monsteras. That is all 4 plants now growing on their own, all with a root system. The 2 that had less of a root system definitely will start to grow and develop a better root system and then start to push out new leaves. And then the main plant will push out another growth point from somewhere on one of the nodes and do the same thing, push out some new leaves. So I hope this video was definitely helpful. I hope it encouraged you to make some propagations of your own, whether it's of your Monstera Borsigiana or another rare or common houseplant of your choosing. Thank you guys again for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in the content I provide. And as always, every plant's a princess. Bye!